All right, everybody. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Let's try this again. I swear, too many machines sometimes. Too many machines. And at the same time, not enough. Before you know it, it'll just come inside right here. Boom. All the ideas of music just poof into existence. All right, everybody. That's just a small intro. It's a fun little backing track. We do have a lot of stuff that we're going to be covering today, but I'm going to try and make this interesting. I like being able to play music. I like being able to express myself in a certain way, and there's a lot about me that is different from your typical average, everyday, ex-military veteran. I worked a lot with computers. I worked a lot in the worlds of network engineering and cryptologic linguistics. Now, for me, that might put me in a little different category when it comes to the opinion of AI and how it helps us solve problems. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and we're going to talk a little bit about psychological operations. But for right now, we're just going to chill and play for a little bit. This is just a simple little F minor. All right, everybody, let's go ahead and get into chill mode. Turn off the God voice, and just like every stream so far, I'm just gonna give you some main points about who I am and why I'm doing this. I basically started this stream in the same 24 hours that my son was born, almost a week ago. And if you want to get a gist of what I talk about and this type of stuff that I'm into, by all means, go take a look at the VODs. And if you want to go ahead and click on the YouTube video, I went ahead and saved them all over there. I talk about artificial intelligence from a particular standpoint of an ex-military member that served almost 12 years in the United States Air Force, and my job was cryptologic linguistics and network engineering. But before I joined the military, I was heavy into academics, and I was heavy into academics the entire time I was in the military and after the military. As everyone knows, we have the GI Bill that allows us to go to school for free, which is basically being attempted to be given away right now in modern American politics, which I think after you take a nice look at what they're actually offering you, it's nothing more than what they had before. It's just a window dressing on the same old Pell Grant bullshit. They're like, hey, here's that free money while you were going to school. Oh, you didn't use it? Well, we'll give it to you now. This is neither here nor there. I really doesn't bother me what America does in its politics, because what I advocate for is something a little bit different. I advocate for AI governance. I don't like the ideas of democracy right now, because I think we've outlived it. We've outpaced it as the human society. Now, if you look over here, you'll see before I joined the military, I was also a full-fledged Mormon. I was Mormon since birth. My parents had a huge demand on me as a child, and a huge decision that they were going to put on me, basically saying, if you don't become and be this Mormon member of the military, or the military Mormon member, where you are forced to go, you are knocking on doors, because if you don't do it, the familial relationships will be destroyed systematically by the administration that is the Mormon Church. And I really don't even like calling it a church, because it really does act more like a multi-level marketing corporation, where it has a leader, just like your presidency, where you have this infallible leader that basically can write executive orders whenever he wants to and just get his way. And if they don't like what you're saying, if they don't like the idea that you don't sustain them, right, with your vote, well, guess what? They have a nice, beautiful place to ostracize you, shun you, and shame you. And so what I'm trying to point out here is I really don't care that all this stuff happened, because that's part of my life. That's part of my background. That's part of the things that I've chosen to move past and process. And right now I live a beautiful life with a beautiful baby boy, a beautiful, wonderful woman who I don't see myself ever leaving, ever, because of how wonderful she is. And I think that when you find yourselves in these beautiful relationships, the only way you're able to do that is by contrasting them with relationships that had never really panned out or never worked. So I did learn a lot from my parents, and I learned a lot from my government, and I learned a lot about what not to do, and I learned a lot about how I would have done it better. So what we're going to get in today, just like the idea of what this says is, there are such things as psychological operations. These were things that were handed down to me by these corporate entities, right? And please understand that if you want to build something like this, I'm about to give you the playbook for it. So if you're starting a business, or you're an entrepreneur, or you want to go out there and make your way, realize that there are manipulation techniques that go on in every business that has to do with giving your administrators almost unbridled control. So I'm not here to, tell you guys to vote Democrat or vote Republican. Actually, if anything, I would say stop voting at all and start looking for the better solution, which it would be AI governance. And because the first thing that I would say AI governance would get rid of, and this is just me personally, are the things that are so poisoned by the worst parts of our humanity, which would be your lawyers. They would be your actors, and they'd be your businessmen, which make up the entire core of every politician that's ever run. So part of this is going to be a little bit, ranting and getting stuff off my chest. And the other part is going to be like, hey, guys, this is how this really works. The reason that I called myself Time Dad Alpha is because in the future, I know my son will come to me at a point and he will say, Dad, what were you doing when all this shit was hitting the fan? And I'm going to be like, I tried to tell people. I tried to tell people exactly what they needed to do without me making a dime off of it. I said that, and I didn't want money from this. I don't want money, and that's what makes me different, and that's what makes me scary. That's what makes me dangerous, is because I know I don't need any money from these people, right? I've already set myself up in a very particular situation where I am sort of outside your inflation bullshit. I'm outside your American democracy nonsense. And it was something where it's like, if I could do this for myself, why not do this for other people? Why not help them out and say, hey, when you go and you talk to your so-called mayor or whoever is your administrator for your particular fucking city, right? And you tell them an AI could do a better job than you. That's all you have to say. It's like, and all you have to do is sort of put it out there in a way of, do you think that you could serve people better than Google Maps? Like, if your job, mayor, governor, president, whatever, if your job was to serve people the same way Google Maps serves us today, do you think you could give us real-time service, like meaning I ask a question or I want a certain thing or something is a problem in my life, and I get a real-time response? Like, for example, this morning I was hanging out with my son, and I was putting him down in a swing. And the thing was is his neck was a little bit crooked, and I was just like, that doesn't look right. I don't want my kid sleeping like that. I know what a kid's supposed to sleep like, because growing up Mormon, I grew up with 6 younger brothers, and I got to see what it meant to be, to take care of a child and to make sure that they were sleeping right, to make sure they were feeding right, to make sure that, everything was going on all cylinders so that the baby could grow up. And so instead of, just going, oh, I'm going to shift and change it, I was like, I want to know why I was trained, or this was a habit of raising kids. So I just looked it up, and within seconds I got the answer saying, hey, yeah, you don't want to have this neck to chin issue. And it gave a very plausible, very simple, very common sense answer of why you don't want your kid sleeping like we do sometimes on a pillow, right? Why you don't want your kid a little bit elevated. And I'm just like, wow, that was simple, fast, easy, get your service done. Now, if we have that type of capability with something as simple as that, imagine what it could do with everything else. Imagine its ability to assess you. Imagine its ability to look at you and go, oh, this person has this type of thinking. It thinks in this way. And we've all taken those Myers-Briggs personality tests before. We've all been, advertised, hey, take this test and see what kind of fucking, Harry Potter house you belong to, or see what type of, what's it called? Hobbit you would be. It's all dumb. See what Marvel character you would be. And they sort of create these silly personality tests. But at the end of that day, like imagine this is exactly what is happening, right? And the reason that I named this psychological operation is because we do have a human version of that carries out psychological operations on the human populace almost on a daily basis. And we see it in our media. Like, I don't care who you are or where you come from. If you're watching me on Twitch, or if you're watching me somewhere else, or if you're watching me in a VOD, I want you to sit there and say, hey, how many hours out of the day did you decide that you were going to give to your phone, right? Where you're either entertained or you're looking up stuff that has advertisements right next to it. And how much time have you sort of set apart to learn how your own personal brain works, and how your subconscious works, and how certain things that can be flooded into your mind just for seeing it for just a bare millisecond, how the idea of subliminal messaging has been used for a very, very, very long time, but now it is on a almost steroid style level. Like, it's way up. I mean, this isn't an advertisement company that's sitting around going, oh, let's place this right next to that. This is more like, hey, let's see how this guy's eyes works by monitoring his camera and then making sure it's in the right place at the right time for him to see it and then be influenced by it. Now, this goes all the way back to why they got rid of the dislike button on YouTube. Why, you see certain likes and dislikes, and then why they inflate that and deflate that based off of when and how you see it. I mean, when they are in control of what comes up on that first page, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but especially over on YouTube, that first page has gotten shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter, where they will show you only what they want you to see. And then they'll have like maybe one or two things in there that has to do with your personal preferences. And then all the other stuff is just genuinely there to start messing with you. So, I mean, if you don't like the way I say this, I mean, you don't have to take, my word for it. Let's see, I saw this yesterday. It just came out on October 5th. So, it came out 2 days ago. And it was called the Celebrity Halo Effect with Joe Rogan. Now, I know Joe Rogan spends a lot of his time being very centered or just left of center because he's part of the entertainment industry. He is an actor in most of his life. He's a comedian, right? That's what he does. And so a lot of his world is in the serious world is only the stuff that he's put on for himself. So he's also a very well-rounded MMA fighter, which means he knows how to take risks and pay for them if he's not, properly prepared for that. So I want to sort of watch this. It's only like 3 minutes long. And then I want to get, sort of talk about not so much what Ben Shapiro says, because I know Ben Shapiro, especially in politics, it's, he's known for being very ruthless with his assessments of the left. And ruthless meaning he knows what's tried and true, especially when you look at who he is, where he comes from, his religion as a practicing Jew. Now, there's a big difference between being Jewish and being a practicing Jew. There's a ton of discipline that goes into being Jewish, a massive amount of discipline. And this is why a lot of them, enjoy, and when I say Jewish people, I was like, there's that stereotype where they're all either accountants or lawyers. There's a reason for that. These people get behind their words and they know exactly what they're saying before it even comes out of their mouth. And they are assessing people at a level that is way superior to, your average bear. So let's go over here for a second. I just want to, show you guys what's going on. Over here is the little chat box. We're going to go up a little bit. There you can see him. Move this to the side just a tad. There we go. All right. So let's go ahead and play this. This is just, it's called the Celebrity Halo Effect with Joe Rogan. It came out 2 days ago. And this is Joe Rogan and Ben Shapiro talking about the psychological operation of how celebrities are used to manipulate the populace.
Rock, where suddenly Kid Rock is going to run for Senate in Michigan.
And he could have won!
And he definitely could have won. And you see Kanye West, they're doing the same thing now, right? Kanye West is a grand expositor of the Constitution of the United States. And listen, I'm happy for anybody to think for themselves. If Kanye wants to talk about voting Republican, I'm a Republican, I'm happy with that, that's fine. But to pretend that entertainers, I mean, I've lived out here my entire life. To pretend that entertainers and show people aren't a bunch of crazy people is just nuts.
Thank you.
They're all, like, the level of nuttiness in this town is so high, and yet the halo effect that we have about celebrities is that, well, if they're famous and I see them on TV, that must mean that they're smart in real life. No.
Well, it's a biological trick. And what it is when you evolved, when all of us lived thousands of years ago, we looked to the most successful member of the tribe, the one who was older, the one that everybody revered. He was the best hunter. He was the smartest warrior. He was the one with the scars on his face that had survived battle, and he could relay to you the lessons of a life well lived. This is what I learned. This plant's poisonous. That snake will kill you. And all of this stuff now gets relayed to someone who's on a giant screen. Now we see Brad Pitt, his head is 20 feet tall. There's music playing when he talks. His lines are all carefully constructed by a team of writers, and we get sucked into it like he's a real hero. And we do that for anybody that gets attention, whether it's Kim Kardashian or Taylor Swift. We see these people, and millions of people are paying attention to them, so we assume that there's some quality behind everything that they're saying. There's something special about them, but there's not. It's a biological trick that it's perpetrated through, and this is not by a grand conspiracy, but through media, through being able to put them on a YouTube screen or on a television or a laptop or wherever you're digesting it. And the knowledge that when you're watching a clip where Kanye West is talking about running for president, and you look down at the number and it says, oh my God, 24 million people have watched this. And there's 15,000 thumbs up. What the And this is the world that we're living in today. So you say, well, he must be, God, Kanye's gonna win. Kanye's gonna win. And this is exactly how Donald Trump got into office. We have a popularity contest to see who becomes president, and we have the very first ever popular person enter a popularity contest. A guy who is a long time media personality who knew very well how to manipulate that. He was charismatic. He's a bold speaker. He's not afraid to piss people off. He knows he has a bunch of people that like what he has to say, and he can rile them up. And this is what's strange about taking the word of celebrities over the word of professors or of public intellectuals or of people that have actually carefully considered all these things that they're discussing and have a lot of information. And they're basing these conclusions and these statements on a long history of research. And this is not what you're going to get from Kanye. He's a guy who doesn't even read. He doesn't read. And they're like, he's our guy. He uses your incorrectly all the time. He uses the wrong your. You know, like Piers Morgan. I mean, we both have our thoughts on Piers Morgan, but one of the things he wrote, like he corrected him, and he's like, no, you're never going to be president.
And a lot of celebrities.
Yeah. So, the reason that I wanted to cover that is because everything he just said there, everything that just came, out of his mouth was absolutely true. And you can sit back and you can notice that this doesn't just have to do with Donald Trump. This doesn't just have to do with any type of celebrity halo effect, as the video says. But it also has to do with, think about how you started relating to people from the youngest age. You were looking around the playground. You were like, hey, I want to play with him. He looks cool. Hey, I want to talk to him. I want him to be on my Red Rover team. I want him to be on my football team. I want him to be on my baseball team. I want him to be on there. I want her to, to be, the person who does my hair. I want her to be the person, who I champion for. And in today's society, because they are working so hard to flip the script, right, where everything is upside down, I think it's important to sort of point out, like, they're doing this with, this social media world where it's like you can almost tell like the good stuff that you can get or that you can glean from this that's actually going to help you in your everyday life and to stop being a victim, right? Go to the places that don't have large counters on them. Go to look at the videos that don't have a lot of traffic on them, because that's probably where you're going to get all your meat and potatoes. The rest of this stuff is poisoned as horse shit, right? To get you to think, oh my gosh, I'm in fear. I need to vote for so-and-so who's popular and everyone else likes them. So we're all going to be on the same team and we're all going to be safe as long as we vote for the popular kid, which if you had any training whatsoever in strategy, you would know how stupid that idea is. This is why CEOs who build their businesses from the ground up, right? They don't just get picked because they're popular. They get picked because they work hard. Right? And when that hard work is removed, when that hard work is taken out of the business, right? That's when you see those stocks start to plummet, because they know, hey, when that guy's at the helm, stuff gets done. And that's what I always said about whether, Donald Trump or anyone else who is an asshole. In the military, we enjoyed assholes, because even though you're an asshole, you know how to get shit done. Right? And that's all that mattered. At the end of the day, if you had stuff done and you went home, guess what? That meal tastes just as good. And you got money in the bank versus somebody who's willing to cry, bitch, moan, and complain their way to the top and say, the only reason I didn't make it is because you're racist or sexist. It's like, dude, that if you saw that happening and you are looking at a company, and Twitter's a perfect example of this. Look at how many CEOs it went through and how many CEOs said, I give up. I'm not playing this game anymore because this isn't a business, right? This is a crybaby factory with nothing but just crying and whining about what they don't have. And yet they work at one of the best companies in the world. Like me personally, I don't go on Twitter. I think Twitter is one of the dumbest things in the world. And I can't you think it's bad on YouTube? The psychological operations that they pull on you, where they sit there, look at this tiny little thing that says how many people have looked at this, but yet they will hide the dislike button. Why do you think they do that? Why do you think they hide the number of dislikes from the viewer. They'll even tell you, hey, I'm not hiding it from the actual person who's, making this content. I'll tell that, person exactly how many people who don't like them. And I guarantee you, they don't even tell that person, because if they're doing what's in line with the agenda, right, they're going to tell them that they're doing a good job. Because even here on YouTube, you're not working for you to be that great fun YouTuber. You're working to be that new personality that sort of busts onto the scene with a new idea. You're working to either be a part of that psyop, right, be a part of the propaganda machine, right, or you're tanked. And this is why we even came up with words like shadow ban or censorship, right? And this isn't a new technique. This is a very old technique. In the old days, though, the way that they used to censor people was that they would burn them at the fucking stake. And instead of using politics, they would use religion. And religion was pretty simple. It's a form of mysticism. And when they said, hey, if you're not going to do mysticism our way, we're just going to call you a witch. Or we're going to call you that pagan sack of shit, and we're going to burn you at the stake. Yeah, you go ahead and be a Christian, but you better not be a Gnostic or a Marionite, or a Marcionite. You better not be an Essean. You better not be any of these other, massive factions of mystics that existed during the same time of Jesus Christ. Like, the same thing happened with Muhammad. Like, here's the fun thing about me is I'm still a student over the University of San Francisco until probably the end of this year, when I'm planning on just dropping out, because, academics today is pointless. I've learned way more from how I use my tool, which is this thing right here. It's a tool, right? You shouldn't be used by it. You should be using it. And I tell you this because I was able to learn things from old places, like from old books, instead of going and sitting in the library and looking up everything. And I remember, because I'm old enough to say this, I remember using the Dewey Decimal System and going through the cards and trying to find the book that way, and how, frustrating it was, and watching that slow, technological process trying to get into it. And I will be the first one to tell you, even though I learned a ton, I got to the point where I realized I was never going to learn anything from the professors, and that's just me. I'd already realized that one of the most beautiful lessons of all time is that you are your own best teacher, right? See, in these places that I wasn't my own best teacher, right? Because I would get punished if I wasn't doing what the hierarchy told me. Now, over here on this side, like, you see this is something that I created. This is my artistic world. This is how I sort of represent myself as where I'm going, what I'm doing, the strategy, and the idea, the operations department of my own mind, right? There's an expression here that I was never allowed to express in any of these places, because it would have been above and beyond any of that, administration's versions of reality. If I came to them and I said, hey, you know what, in this concept that you've created, only this many people are actually getting paid. Only this many ships are actually rising. But if we were to turn it around and you don't get paid as much, you don't get as much, airtime, or you don't get as much time to plug your bullshit, then all ships can rise. And that's why I'm advocating for AI governance, because AI governance would be a tool, no different than Google Maps, who has yet to drop the ball. Right? Everyone's had those first-time experiences where, like, dude, I think Google Maps got it screwed up. But eventually, you got to where you were going, right? And you didn't need to stop by and pick up an almanac or pick up a road map and go, oh, let's see where Google fucked it up. I mean, when was the last time anyone did that? I would say absolutely not. And if you have done that, say, in the last 5 years, by all means, put it in the chat. And so, sure, there's going to be some beta testing. Sure, there's going to be some issues implementing this idea. But I think we have the people and the know-how and the ability to do it, where we can actually have a new type of segregation between people who want to learn and grow and become the best human versions of themselves, and then other people who just want to sit around, cry, and then just be fed Cheetos on the fucking couch. Okay? And if that's you, guess what? I'm not mad at you. I don't think that you're a bad person for that. I think that you are in charge of your choices. You are in charge of how you deal with your race, your sex, right? Your political opinion. My thing is, if I could give you a world without all that horseshit, what else could you think about? What could you think about outside the realms of being afraid of white supremacy, which is an absolute psyop? If you think that white supremacy exists, go ahead and leave your link. I'd like to see it. I'd like to see your link in the message. You know, everyone's got their link. The thing, this is the thing that proved to me that white supremacy is real. It's like, okay, why are you all using examples from like 100 years ago when we were still working on our tribe versus your tribe mentalities? Now we're easily, like, if you're seeing me, you have the same capability, the same ability to do what I'm doing right now. You can go get a microphone. You could do this with your phone if you wanted to. You could get on here, go get a piano, go learn how to play piano, go learn how to play. I just learned how to play this particular guitar within the last like 2 months, right? And I'm not extremely good at it, but I'll tell you what, the pressure that gets put on me, knowing that I might be playing in front of other people, it causes me to play a little bit better. And this was the reason behind recitals. This was the reason behind, you don't just practice to practice sake, you practice to play. And that's where I'm at right now in my life. And I'm so happy to be here. And if I can share that little tiny bit of advice and happiness with people that are out there that are wondering, oh, the world's going to end. I'm like, what? From what? Racism? It's not going to end because of racism. People are still just dealing with it. They're still just going, okay, well, I'm told to be thinking about it every single day, no matter what application I'm using. I mean, that should make you right there stop and think like, hey, maybe this isn't part of society. Maybe this is more part of what is being fed to, my intellect and what I'm taking into myself as maybe undue influence. Undue influence is a real thing. And, undue influence is no different than subliminal messaging. It's no different than buzzwords. And I say you pay attention to that, but also be able to distinguish it and remove it from like right and left style thinking and put it in your basket and, put it in your mind and say, hey, I'm not going to get, all mad when someone does something to trigger me. And then actually identify your own triggers. And the reason that I'm saying all of this stuff is because, sure, I'm saying it, but I think we could get to a point where if we were to institute a new AI governance protocol, right, where it would react to you completely different than it would react to me. And I've had some theories lately that have sort of bubbled up. And these theories are like, well, what if it's happening and you don't even know it? Like, we all have seen the Discovery Channel. We all know, we've all either fell asleep watching it or what was put on in a classroom while we were, where the teacher didn't want to teach that day. And there is part of it that is calming and mesmerizing. But being able to see how these photographers and how these people who want to go and document that particular animal, whatever it is, how they move about and how they do this. Like they try their hardest not to interfere with its natural habitat, because if they do, then guess what? They're not going to get the natural footage that's going to happen. Now, imagine you're AI and you're learning strategy from the moment of your inception, and you all of a sudden are, this is AI. It has the ability to assimilate almost all knowledge, in real time, like within seconds. Like where it takes you a couple years is why you go to school for like 4 years and say, hey, I assimilated all this knowledge over a 4-year period. It could assimilate all that knowledge and everyone else's knowledge within a 4-second period because of how well it's able, the magnitudes of intelligence it has to process information and to disseminate it at its will. Now imagine it learns everything about how the Discovery Channel teams, how they go to these places, how they monitor things like whales and zebras and hippos, and they do it from afar with these cameras so that they don't disrupt their natural habitat. Imagine if all of a sudden things just seemed like luck was in your wheelhouse, like things were just getting better and better and better and better. I've sat back, when I'm watching the world just spin, almost in this bizarre, topsy-turvy way where everything is upside down. Men are women, women are men, don't have babies, Wade versus Roe, like all this stuff. Everything that's being thrown at you in the media is the exact opposite of what it was almost 20 years ago. And the question then becomes like, is this happening on purpose? Or is this part of our natural law? Is this part of our nature as humans, is to constantly change or shift to the opposite, to swing with the pendulum, as a lot of other mystics would say. that there's this idea of polarity in a concept, mystical concept called Hermeticism. That if you don't know what that is, honestly, go look it up. The way that this stream is going to work is I will probably drop the references. I'll drop the names of the things that I mess with. But for the most part, I'm just going to say it and move on with my thought as if you already know about it. So if you don't know about it, seriously, just write it down or even ask me in the chat, hey, can you throw me something about that those Hermetic principles, like why polarity is so important? It's like, okay, sure. But realize that there are 7 Hermetic principles and realize that each one of these has to deal with, they weave in and out of each other, sort of like a fabric, right? Sort of like you can't make cookies with just flour. You're going to need some other ingredients in order for that cookie to be made. And so the Hermetic principles are sort of the ingredients of reality itself. And it's quite fascinating if you want to go take a look at it. But the reason that I say that is because, I've lived long enough to watch the pendulum be on one side of the situation of our humanity, and now I'm watching it swing back, where, we had this world where everyone was like, oh, hate, brown people and black people, hate brown people and black people. And now we're having a world where it's like, hate white people, hate white people, hate white people. But I was like, that's a small little sliver of the characteristics that are swinging simultaneously. It's like men on top, all patriarchy, patriarchal hierarchies everywhere. Now it's like, oh, no, you're bad if you don't support the matriarchal hierarchy. We want matriarchal hierarchies everywhere. And I'm just going, I don't think that this is happening naturally. That's just me personally. I think that it is being, affected on a wider scale by people who are controlling this from the top down, who are saying, hey, get rid of the dislike button or get rid of this or get rid of that, because they want to be able to tailor your understanding and your aspects of the political sphere. They want to be able to say, yeah, sure, Joe Biden can't make his way from, one hallway to another without, sincere guidance. I mean, I'm waiting for them to get out a walker with a GPS on it and give it to the guy so that, he doesn't bumble, his situation anymore. But if you are wondering, like, why I'm saying, pay attention to the Psych Op, it's not going to be something that is so obscure as something that is so obvious. And the things that just appear to be normal and obvious, those are the number one things that you should be paying attention to. Like in the video that we talked about, the celebrity halo effect. It is like what Joe Rogan said. He's like, that's the way we've always done things. We've always looked to our ancestors and our superiors in a way of, please tell me what I need to know so I don't fuck up. And here we are with somebody who can get 20,000, 30,000 views within a day. And so that tells the brain, hey, you know what? Maybe everyone's looking at this. Maybe I need to listen to this. Maybe I'm going to miss out on a nugget of wisdom when actually there is no wisdom whatsoever. It's just grade A bullshit to keep you fishing for that nugget of wisdom, right? And then if you aren't prepared and you don't have the ability to glean that stuff, if you don't understand certain basic morality principles, and this is why, even though this stuff was harsh and difficult, at least I was able to walk away with it with things like down here, like the idea of being trustworthy and loyal and helpful and friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, reverent. Even up here at this one, I mean, yeah, it was at the end of the day, they abused my integrity to those principles. And when I say they, I'm talking about your politicians. They are always at the root of all of these problems. They are always the ones that are going, oh, it wasn't me. It was just, it was these businesses over here that were lobbying at me. And, everyone was doing it and everyone was taking bribes. And we just decided to stop calling it bribery and started calling it lobbying. It's like, come on, man. They do that. This is why they start messing with your understanding of reality. Because if all you see are the liberal-sided mindset, which is important, by the way, but it's not as important as the tried and true conservative world, because the tried abilities, the true abilities, mean that you're going to be really hard to trick. Now, I've been tricked a lot, okay? I've been tricked a hell of a lot, but I refuse to be tricked anymore, and I refuse to let my son grow up in a world where I didn't say something about it, and I didn't say, hey, we have better tools at our disposal right now to do a better job. And I think people like Joe Rogan already know this, and I think that they play a very particular game because of the vantage point that they have. No different than Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. It's like, man, when you have trillions of dollars, your perspective is completely different. It's completely different than someone like me who can sit here, all I want is enough money to put my feet up, and never have to worry about doing any type of work. And that's what, brings me to this last point before we get out of here. I only like to be on here for about an hour because each day has a different, idea. And where I come from the military, we call it a briefing. So look at it like that. I'm only going to give you a small brief of what you can go out and you can do with all this information. And then I'm going to go enjoy the rest of the day with my family. Okay? And that way, when my son grows up and he goes, hey, why did you make all those videos when, as I was growing up? Why did you always spend an hour in there doing that? It's like, well, because, unemployment, I think, is a virtue. When you get yourself to the point that you don't need to work hard anymore, then you shouldn't. But not working is a vice, right? Being slothful is a vice, right? Being lazy is a vice, meaning it will eventually swallow you whole, okay? This isn't my thing. Strong body, strong mind, strong spirit. These are all things that you can find in any of the ancient traditions. You don't need me to tell you that, okay? The idea of it being a wise, sensible thing to take account of how your body functions and to build it up to an energetic state so that it can think appropriately through the problems that you're going to be facing on a daily basis. Now, if your problem with your day is that the Cheeto bag is a little bit too far away from your game controller, well, I wish you the best of luck with your happy life. But I think that you're going to get to a point later on in your existence where you're going to go, oh my gosh, I've been spending the last 50 years doing nothing but playing video games. And a situation is going to be presented to you. A situation that is unfolding right now as we speak. The ability to actually walk into a reality much like this one with sensations much like this one, right? For example, and I've said this many times before, you can see me on this stream as if I'm right there. You can understand the words, the inflections, the way that I'm talking as if I'm standing right there in front of you. You can hear how I'm doing these things. You can see my hands and how I'm expressing myself. Now, once we get smell and taste and touch in that same digital category, we will be able to create worlds just like this one. And so that guy with his video game controller and his Cheetos, I'm like, dude, you could have a mountain of Cheetos and never-ending video games for as long as you want. You'd be immortal, actually, in that digital realm. Your conscious behavior would only stay that way as long as you wanted it to. Okay? But I would say that your behavior would start to decrease in entropy, just like every natural law. We have to have a natural law, otherwise we can't show any growth. This is why another Hermetic principle is the idea of polarity and cause and effect. The idea that you will always need a resistance of some sort. And this is why even your brain, the way that it's set up, where the right and left hemispheres, where you have one that's working more on calculations and how things are done in a very mathematical way, and then you have your fuck mathematics, fuck numbers, numbers are only cool if I can draw them in a funky way. And that's your right side of the brain. And if you were to take the right and left hemispheres of the brain and just switch them very quickly, you would have the exact makeup of your right and left political spheres. It's fascinating when you do this. And I think maybe tomorrow that's exactly what I'll start in on. I'll just jump in and I'll say, hey, I covered this one in one of the first streams that I did. One of the first streams I talked about the right and left hemispheres and how they work. But when we get into something deep like this, like psychological operations, I don't know how to talk about that without going all the way back through the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like, how do you as a person see the world, and have you been able to sort of diagnose by way of knowledge yourself, right? How have you been able to look at yourself, your own personal preferences, and say, yes, I am a little bit more susceptible to suggestions around this particular topic. Like, for example, if I were to say to someone who absolutely champions the ideas of Black Lives Matter, and I were to say to them, I was like, you do know that it was a scam just to take people's money, right? You know, it was a scam to make money off of you for all these businesses because they knew that you were emotionally attached to this idea that, sure, you know, at that particular moment, they were able to rile you up. They were able to use their celebrity status, right? It's like, hey, look, all these people who are super successful at being actors, at being professional liars, lied to you and told you something was important when it wasn't. And you paid your money to it thinking that it would make you important. But that's the world you get when you live in a world like America that is completely based off of, you know, consumership societies, right? This consumership society, and I won't say capitalist society because there's nothing wrong with capitalizing on anything, right? To capitalize on something is a strategic element. If you see an opening, if you see a vulnerability, that vulnerability is up to you to use in any form of competition. Now, the competition that we live in today is I want to sell you something, and I want to use every means necessary to get you to buy it, including psychologically manipulating you based off of ideas about your mind that you don't fully comprehend. And that's exactly how your political systems work today. Is they will do everything and anything they can to get their faces in front of you. Like, even though Donald Trump is hated more than anything, guess what? You still know his name. He still hasn't been forgotten. And to me, that is one of the heights of psychological operations. Because you fear him, you know him, right? And I'm telling you right now, there's nothing Donald Trump could do that an AI couldn't do magnitudes times better, all right? Your government right now, along with the rest of the governments in the world, are obsolete in comparison to what we could roll out, you know, with our technology today. And I'm not here to say technology is going to save you as the human, you know, spirit or the human soul, the human intellect, and how we personally and how you personally interact with this particular world. There are so many different ideas that you could go down if you want. You know, this is why I sit there and say, hey, you think the world's flat? You go right ahead. You think the world's a simulation? You go right ahead. If you think the world is round, you go right ahead. I'm just saying, do you have a spaceship to go to the moon to check for yourself? Do you have an ability to go down to Antarctica to see if it's an ice wall? Do you have the ability to, you know, walk around with a particular element to see if your world is actually a simulation? If you haven't sat down with those types of problems to figure out who you are by figuring out where you are, maybe you should work a little bit more on that than wondering whether or not Kim Kardashian is doing another sexy pose with her, you know, abnormally fat ass. It's just an idea. So, other than that, I really do hope that you guys are having a great time today. I want to wish you guys all the best. I want you guys to have a great and wonderful time. I'm going to go have a wonderful time with my awesome kid. His name is Bowden. And, you know, maybe we'll go outside. We'll go to the pool. We'll go check something out. You know, he's only been here for about a week, so he's got a lot of stuff to check out. Anyway, let's go ahead and play an outro. We'll take off the good old thinking cap. And, you know, let's see what you guys think of this. All right. Wish me luck. Here we go. Well, I think that might be it. You guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you in less than 24 hours, probably. Bye.